times, and then we'll also talk a little bit about our college credit opportunities for students through Senior Year Plus. So that'll be the second presentation. But many of you may have seen the Courier article this past week with regards to our ACT scores. I thought they did a fairly nice job of reporting our results. I don't like the fact that they try to use that forum to compare districts, but that is kind of what the state does as well. So we do make some comparison in ours, but at the same time, as we look at our ACT results from year to year, we really try to compare ourselves with ourselves. You know, how did we do the year before? How many students are taking the exam? How many students are enrolling in certain classes, and those kinds of things that we look at getting kids ready for college and career. So I'll spend some time talking about our results for this year. You can kind of see this is just a real quick snapshot looking at what our results were on the right. We had 244 of our graduating class of last year. That's how these are calculated. Many of those students actually took the exam as juniors, but they don't report the scores of those students until they actually graduate to us. So 244 students, and they had a composite of 24.0, and you can see the state of 22.0 and the nation of 21.0 this year. And then you also see the number of students that actually took the test in the state of Iowa as well as nationally. I will mention that the Des Moines Register reported that the national number of students that took is a record this year. It's the highest number of students across the nation that ever took the ACT exam. So,
and why do you think that is?
I think there's more states that are looking for this as their college entrance exam, if you will, instead of the SAT. Also, I think there are a number of community colleges around the country that may have had different assessments for entrance purposes. For example, Hawkeye Community College has the Compass, so students take that to be administered. But some states are looking at the ACT in addition to maybe some other assessments, or in place of other assessments for their community college or junior college experience as well. This again kind of breaks it down into all 5 of the different areas, or at least 4 of the subtests and then the composite, so it's just another way of looking at that. You can see in each of the subtests we can consistently outperform the state as well as the nation, which we believe we should every year. As you look at this chart in the next few line charts, what I want you to focus on, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, because I think what we're seeing is we're actually seeing the gap. Whoops, shut it off. The gap between where the state has been performing, or the nation, and where we are performing is actually getting larger, and that's good news. We want to see that. We want to see our students performing, continue to perform at a higher rate than the state and the nation. And so you can see that's happened. This is the composite score. You see our English scores, and the gap continues to get wider than that. These are our reading scores for the last number of years, and this is our math scores and our science scores. So I think what's pleasing to us is, again, that we're seeing that gap between our students and the state. Students actually get wider as the years go on. What's happening with that? When you take a look at that, you know, we had a slight drop last year, which really it's tough to say. This year, you know, it's tough to make a judgment on a 1 year of assessments. So we try to look a little bit more, and you can see we had a few years where we were down.
So this is also what's happening in the state, so I'm wondering are they changing the test?
I don't think so, not that I'm aware of. I don't know whether they really changed the test or not. But this is what we probably are spending a lot of time focusing on right now, and it's getting a lot of play in the national news as well. It's not just looking at the raw scores of students, but it's looking at scores to determine whether they believe those students are college and career ready. And so I've shown you this every year that we've presented this, but basically what college readiness is, and if you look at the top box there, the College Board has determined that in order for students to do B or above work at the college level in these areas, they determine what that ACT score needs to be. For example, they look at college English composition, that first year of English composition, and to be able to predict a score of D or above in that class, students need to have at least an 18 or above. The same way with college math, they look at that college algebra. And students would need to get a 22 on the ACT if they're going to experience a reasonable amount of success or B or above in that course. They use a social studies course at the college level to determine the reading ability for students, and again, that's a 22. And then the science piece that's college biology. And again, they determined that a student would need a 23 on that to actually get to be college ready for that piece of it. So then the bar chart below basically says these are the percent of our students that were either above those or below those. And then of course the bottom one is that percent of students that have met all four of those together. And this is where I think if you've read any of the national reports or even the state report, that they're really focusing a lot of effort on this right now by just saying that a lot of our students, or a good percent of our students, are not college ready when they're looking at all four of those together. And this is an area we would like to see our students grow in as well with that. This is a different look at each one of those, and it looks like the last 5 years. Again, you'll see that we are above the state and the nation in terms of the percent of our students that meet this one. This is college English. Students needed 18, and so you can see that 84% of our students this past year actually had met that requirement. They either had an 18 or above on the ACT. The math piece, we were at 64% that made that 22 on the ACT, and you can see the state was under 50% of the nation as well. So our students performed, again, quite a bit higher than the state and the nation. The reading piece, our students, 63% of them had that 22 or above, whereas at 52% of the state and 44% of the nation. And then the science piece, 63% of our students had actually got a 23 or above, compared to 47 and 37 with the state and the nation. And then again, when you meet when all four of them are met, 42% of our students actually met that requirement, compared to 31% of the state students and only 26% of the students in the nation.
And these are all seniors.
These would be seniors, yeah. They basically report on the graduating class of the year before. All right. This is just another way to look at that same one-year data from last year in terms of how did we compare against the state and the nation on those college readiness scores. This is one that we struggled with over the years, is the percent of students that actually take the ACT exam. And you can see we've been fairly stagnant, between 68, 72% the last 4 or 5 years. We've talked to a lot of students about that, and I'll show you a chart later that I think reflects why that is. I can't say that it's for cost purposes, although that is a factor, and so forth, but I'll show you what that means in a minute after I show you some of our subgroups. So I'll come back to that. We also, the last several years, have been breaking down the assessment versus our subgroups, our ethnicity, and our males and females, and so forth. So as you can see here, all of our subgroups on the ACT outperformed their counterparts across the state, with the exception this past year of our Black and African American students, and that was spot on with what the state was. Again, our numbers aren't real high, so 1 or 2 students can make a pretty good difference in terms of that percentage. This is comparing our males with our females. How did our girls do versus our boys? And you can see it's fairly consistent across the board. There's not a real big gap one way or another between how our girls perform versus our boys. Our boys were a little bit higher in 4 out of the 5, or at least 3 out of the 4. Our girls are a little bit higher in the reading assessment. But then when you compare our girls to the state, the girls across the state, again, we're higher than the girls in the rest of the state, as well as our boys are outperforming the rest of the state as well. This was this chart I want to show you that relates back to our percent of students that actually take the test. And this has been over the past 15 years I've been in this district, it's almost been a complete flip-flop. As you can see, 31% of our graduating senior class headed to Hawkeye Community College this year. And when you combine that with other community colleges of 4.8, you get, over 35% of our students are not going to a four-year university where the ACT is required to be administered. So most of our students, as they make that choice that they're going to head to that community college, they elect not to take the ACT exam. There's no need for them to do that. And with the number and the percent of our students that are actually opting to go to the community college route first, a good majority of them transfer to Iowa, Iowa State, or UNI. They're not required to take that ACT. And the fact that this past year, I think the ACT was $91 to take that exam, something like that, somewhere in the 80s or $91. So I think that's one of the major reasons our students are not taking, because it correlates pretty well. 68, 69% of our students took the ACT. That's what, actually a few more took the ACT that probably didn't need to because of that. So I'll stop there and ask whatever questions you might have that I can hopefully answer with regards to ACT.
I thought I heard you mention that you wanted, needed to do something about the amount of students taking the ACT. I'm wondering why.
We've spent some time, well, I think because it's another measure for our district, and how reflective is it of all of our graduating class? I mean, 68, 69, 70% of our students, I think we can gain some things out of it, but it's 30% of our kids that graduate without taking that. So are we meeting their needs from a college entrance standpoint, from a college readiness standpoint? Are we sure that we're meeting their needs, because we don't have the results of this assessment for them? We don't get this kind of data from the Compass exam that they take to enroll at Hawkeye Community College.
It seemed to me that there'd be an inverse correlation that if you encourage students to take the ACT, you normally wouldn't. That would make the average score go down.
It's possible. I think the more students you have taken, and there's been others, you can look at some other states that, and you look at states that now require the ACT as part of their state assessments. Illinois is a good example. All the students in Illinois must take the ACT, and of course their scores are lower because of that, because every student takes it. But I still think it would be a better measurement for us if all of our students, if we have results from all of our students. But I think that's probably unrealistic until the state either comes up with a way for them to fund it for districts, because it would be pretty cost prohibitive for us to try to provide that. There are a few districts in the state that are providing the opportunity for all students to take the ACT. Students that are on free and reduced lunch do have the opportunity to apply for a waiver of the fee, but not too many take advantage of that.
Kind of a related question. We have our ACT scores now that we're not doing class rank anymore. For those kinds of things that ask for a class rank, whether it's a scholarship or admission, how is that being addressed by those schools?
I'm trying to think what's the name of the score that they have now. There's a formula now that all of the universities, at least the Regents universities, use. The RAI score. Thank you. There's a brain jump a minute there. So, and we've worked extensively with each of those Regents universities, because we're no different than a number of schools in the state that no longer rank students. And so they take those other three components of the RAI and they look at that first. And then if there's some borderline things, then they'll go back to looking at other things, whether it's the courses that students took, the grades they received, and so forth. It's a bigger factor anymore right now, especially with the RAI, is the core courses that students are taking. They want to see those core courses and those higher level courses on the transcript.
And is that for admissions or?
It's for admissions.
So how do we answer that question for scholarship applications? It's just come to my attention, and I'm curious.
The majority of our scholarships aren't tied to a class rank. They may say they have to rank in the upper half of the class. So we still rank our students, we just don't publicize that rank, and we don't communicate, here's what your rank was versus other students or anything like that. But if a scholarship that a student has applied for indicates that they must be in the top quarter or top half, then we will let that student know, yes, you are, no, you're not.
Well, you are right. I mean, I'm just, now that Josie's a senior, I mean, it's really very obvious how that hurts our students. I mean, class rank is not a benefit to our students because we just have such a
And
high
that's
performing
one of the
academic
reasons that
group, yeah.
not only us, but other districts have gone that route, because of the high performing students that we have and the number of students that are sitting at a 3.5 GPA compared to other districts, maybe other districts were having students be admitted before ours, and our students had a higher GPA.
Question, do the juniors take this in the spring of their junior year or no?
I believe it's the spring. And then they can retake it again as a senior, of course. We have a number of students that take it as a sophomore, to see where they're at as a sophomore. One of the unfortunate things is that the other assessments that we have been given over the past number of years, the ACT Plan and Explore test, we give the Plan test at the 8th grade level, the Explore test at the 10th grade level. Excuse me, they're no longer providing that test. And so we don't really have a good litmus test now to see how students will perform on the ACT. And so I don't know whether that's going to result in more students trying to take the ACT over or not, I don't know.
Why is that no longer?
The ACT, or that company, is moving towards trying to be in the mix for our state assessment. And so they've actually created an assessment that's for grades 3 through 11. And so it's no longer just a determining, just for grades 8 and 10. And so we haven't decided yet whether we're going to replace that assessment with something else. We're having those conversations right now, but for right now, our students don't have that option. There is an option on the Iowa assessments that they can now do a predictor score. We can get a predictor score on the Iowa assessments. We haven't chosen to do that yet, but that may be something in the future that we provide for our students. Other questions?
Could some of the students not taking the ACT be actually taking the SAT?
Yes. We have, I'm going to get the percentage wrong. It's approximately between 5 and 6% of our students that actually take the SAT every year, in addition to the ACT in most cases. They take both. A lot of students that take the SAT, those are students that are looking or considering colleges on the East Coast.
Do the academies require the SAT?
No, or at least
Okay.
didn't. They don't require the